Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to Better in Stereo, a monthly podcast in collaboration between the Walleye and Blueprints. I'm Rebekah Skochinski.
And I'm Shannon Lepere.
And we will be your hosts. Matt Sellick is a flamenco guitar virtuoso, composer, and performer. We were lucky to have him join us at Blueprints Studio while in town for a live concert recording with the Thunder Bay Symphony Orchestra. We talked dreams coming true and more. Are we rolling?
She closed the window.
I'm like, all right.
I thought she was going to... Okay, these cameras are on. Hello.
Okay, so we're good?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well,
right.
We'll
right,
real
let's start.
ramble now. The
Okay,
religion
yeah.
recording
We're ready. Welcome back home.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here at Blueprint Studio.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So you're here to take part in a live concert recording with TBSO.
That's right.
Can you tell us how that idea came about and the lead up to this concert?
Yeah. So about where do I even start with this? So for the last 10 years or so, I've been writing orchestral versions of guitar stuff. And by stuff I mean like my own pieces. I go, this is a song I wrote and I play it live. But I really, really like orchestral music, and wouldn't it be fun to play it with a real orchestra? And so this has been going on for a while. And to be honest, if I tried to remember exactly how it started, I would probably end up making something up because it's all kind of a blur. It was very, very gradual. I did stuff with the TBSO like in my early 20s, and like at first it was like, hey, you're a local guitarist in town, do you want to come play a show with us? What kind of repertoire is there? Oh, let's play this thing and this thing. And at one point, I think about 10 years ago, I said, I wrote an orchestral arrangement of one of my songs, can we play that? And they were like, yeah, sure, like let's have a look at it. And it was really small, and like it wasn't a super fleshed out arrangement or anything, but it went over well, and I thought I could do more of this. I could I could write more arrangements and get better at this, and then fast forward to now, and I've got like about a dozen arrangements that we played a concert I think a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It's all kind of a blur now, and it was mostly my stuff with the TBS over at the Da Vinci Center, and around that time, I remember being approached by the TBSO and saying, would you be interested in recording these? Like, we could do a recording project at some point. And I thought that would literally be a dream come true, and it never even occurred to me that would be a possibility or that you would want to do this.
Right.
And so I started going after grant money, and it all kind of came together last year. And I thought, I could put this all together. I could hire the TBSO to do this recording with me. And so the way it's shaking out is sort of in mid-January. I'm guessing by the time this comes out, it'll be over.
But that's okay. We got the deets.
Yeah, by the time this comes out, it'll be all done. But it's a week in the middle of January where we're recording. We're spending about 3 days recording all these arrangements. And then at the end of it, we're doing and I'm going to put heavy quotes, concert. But it's a live recording session. It's going to be... to be honest, I don't know yet.
How it's gonna...
Yeah, because it's going to be the last recording session of this block. We're doing 5 sessions. And so the last session will be whatever's not, whatever we need to patch in, whatever is not quite finished yet, or needs some... Or if we want to do a run through something as a live take.
Right.
And there'll be an audience for that.
And there'll be an audience for that.
Oh, that's cool. Just a little side story. So our son, when he was 3, he always wanted to listen to the Jurassic Park score.
Yeah.
Like, not kids' music. It was just that one, and it was like over and over and over. And we just thought it was so cute because he would like be singing like all the little parts and everything. It's like And then, I mean, he's not really into it right now, but I think it's coming back around. And I just think it's so cool because, like, it's just so random. Like, he was like, I don't want to listen to that. I was like, oh,
well,
okay.
I would also hope it kind of comes...
But, I mean, it's cool.
I would hope it comes around again,
I hope it
because
comes around,
I feel like that was a big part of our growing up was the movie scores.
Yes.
And, I mean, they were orchestral. And they just... they were just so grand.
In high school,
I think it's pretty exciting and pretty cool to think. And how does technology helped with that? Because I remember trying to figure out what another instrument was, and then I was like, you have to transcribe, and So how does that go? Did you not have to do all that? You can just... is there anything that helps with that, or how do you...
I'm trying to think. So when I remember when I was a teenager, I felt like there wasn't. I'm sure there was, but I felt like at the time there wasn't a ton of like YouTube existed,
Right.
but it. Like I remember when
It
I
didn't
first.
for me.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
which is-
YouTube existed,
No,
but
it didn't.
It didn't have the slowdown feature, and it
Okay,
didn't
right.
have the like vast library of
Yes,
like
of
you could look
everything.
up anything.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I mean, it sort of reminds me when I was learning flamenco guitar. At the time, I was like, I'm going to look up flamenco videos, and there'd be like 2 videos of Paco de Lucia from the 70s, and that was all there was. And you're like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm learning these
Yeah,
now.
I guess we're doing this. You
Yeah.
could have done worse, though, right, with him. Yeah.
But like,
You
there
know what?
wasn't-
I'm
yeah.
going to lead into a question
Yeah.
on that one. So how does a guy from Thunder Bay get into flamenco? Because that is
Ooh.
a little bit of a.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a few ways.
You were looking up those 2 70s videos, and you're like,
Yeah.
come on, I need more content.
Yeah, no, I came across them by accident because, two reasons. And the first one was when I was a kid, my parents had Jesse Cook's records. I don't know why I say records. I didn't grow up with vinyl. I just have started to say records instead of albums. But yeah, my parents had Jesse Cook's albums. And like no particular reason, we just had them in the house, and I loved them. And but you know, there's little awareness about where that music comes from. Sometimes like my family didn't know. We're like, yeah, this is
Yeah, we just like this.
yeah. And to be fair, like there is no easy way to label what that genre is. It's not traditional flamenco. It's inspired by it, but it's also inspired
Yeah.
by a lot of other things.
Yes.
I just knew that I liked it, and I wanted to learn it, but it's got very specific techniques and very specific things that you kind of have to. There's a learning curve to it. You can't sit down with a guitar and go, "It's that note, plink." There's very specific ways
Right,
of
or
doing
it's
it.
not quite like rock and roll where you're like, oh, I can learn that.
Yeah, there's a book for it.
There's a book for it. Or I
Which
can
is
learn that
like
guitar.
makes it like a little bit more niche and cool, actually.
Yeah,
Really.
Totally.
Which I didn't realize at the
No,
time.
you didn't
but-
realize this at the time.
No,
I was
you
just
just
like-
liked it.
Yeah, I was like, I like this, and I'm weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, so there was that, and then when I was a teenager, I started really trying to learn it because I played classical guitar, but I wanted to play things that weren't. I wanted to play things on classical guitar that weren't classical music. I love classical music, but for me, it was never the thing that I really wanted to play on the guitar. I wanted to use the medium to do, slightly different things. Like I love listening to classical music, but it's not the kind of stuff I write. My music doesn't sound classical. I don't think. I might be wrong about that, but
But you're inspired by it.
absolutely.
Well, and
yeah.
classical's always the base.
Exactly.
I feel
yeah.
generally
It's-
for Western.
It's entirely
music,
my
right?
background. It's,
Yeah,
for
totally.
sure. So, but I always think, I want to incorporate, other things over here and like this sound or this, this musician or whatever. And, but yeah, so that was reason number one. And in looking up Jesse Cook stuff on YouTube, when YouTube was very, you have the sidebar of recommended things. And at one point it was like, oh, that looks like the kind of guitar I play. Let's click on that. And it was Paco de Lucia playing Bulerías in the 70s. And I'm watching, and it's got a really good close-up of his right hand in like 240p or whatever it was at the time. And I'm going, what is he doing? How how is he moving his hand like that? What's this all about? And I just remember like overnight being like, I need to learn how to do this. And
You were inspired.
yeah. and the other reason was there's a band in town called Flamenco Caravan.
Yes.
And so I remember, this is going to make me sad to tell this part of the story, I'm sure. But I was busking at the marina, and I was playing. I mean, around the time that I became interested in learning Jesse Cook stuff, I also was interested in learning to play the guitar parts for Flamenco Caravan stuff. Because, of course, I'd seen them. I'd seen Esteban play at Chapters, at the time Chapters. And, like, of course, the whole band. But I was seeing Esteban play going, oh, that's, like, the thing that I... Like, how's he doing that? That's
Putting the pieces
thing.
together.
Yeah. So I wanted to learn how to play that. So I had the records, and I was, like, picking up the guitar parts. And I'm busking on the curb at the marina. You know where, like, if I'm sitting on this curb on the corner, like, Bite's over here, and the skate park is right here, and
Yes.
the walkway is right... Yeah. And I'm sitting on the corner, and I'm playing, I don't remember what song, but I'm playing one of their songs like as a guitar solo kind of thing. And this would be at Summer in the Park, so there's like a loud band like down at the band shell. And two people walk by, and like one of them peels off, and like a man and a woman are like walking down the sidewalk, and the guy sort of peels off and comes over and he goes, "That's a nice song you're playing." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And he goes, "I'm the drummer on that recording." And that's how I met Jim.
That's how you met Jim.
Yeah.
Walking by.
Yeah. It was Jim and Susanna.
Oh.
Yeah. And so that's how I met them. And at the time, I don't remember when exactly this was, but they said, so here's the thing. We're not sure, we're getting married soon. We're not sure our guitarist is going to be able to make it. Because he lives in Victoria.
He lives like out of town.
We want the band to play at our wedding. We're not sure if he's going to be able to make it. Do you want to play at our wedding? Do you want to play the guitar parts with the band at our wedding?
No.
And I was like,
starstruck, just
yeah.
What are you going to say? You're not going to say no.
Yeah. So that's how I met Jim and Susanna. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And from there, that's how I started playing with them. And that was the snowball of like learning this. And then it was just, this is what I want to do all the time. So
Matt has this amazing ability to somehow draw cool things to happen to him. I don't know if you know about this, but it lives on the internet, right? You know where I'm going with this?
Oh, I know exactly. Oh, yeah.
But we'll do it quickly because we have to.
Of course. Yeah.
So he mentioned Jesse Cook.
Yes.
And you mentioned learning the parts. Was this before? This was before probably Jim, right?
To be honest, I'm not quite sure.
Remember?
In my head, it's all around that time.
Okay, it's all around the same
It's
time.
in the same 2-year window.
So I'll set it up for you.
Yeah.
Jesse Cook is coming. Jesse Cook is touring. So how did it come about? What happened at that one show?
So, and it's funny because I'm gonna try really hard not to tell the story exactly the same way that he tells it because it gets told on stage almost every night when we do the show.
Does it?
Every single night, yeah.
That's your intro.
That's my intro. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. And so
because it's so good.
Well, and whenever I hear people talk about it, or like whenever I hear him say it, or I start talking about it, it's always in the same words. It's the no, I need to.
Right, but it's you've heard it so many times that you could just repeat it verbatim.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So
give us the Matt version.
I'll give you the Matt version. So, I used to busk at the market at the CLE every Saturday morning. And I just me and my friend John would sit there for 3-4 hours, make a ton of money, and then just be like, well, this is fun. People like this. And so at one point, my mom came to the market with a terrible old digital camera and filmed us playing, put it on YouTube. At the time, was only a couple years old, and we found out that Jesse Cook was coming to play in Thunder Bay, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to. In my head, it was my idea, but I'm not sure it was my idea because I even now, and I'm like, oh, I should send this video or recording I've done to the person who wrote the music. I'm like, no, that's silly. Why would I do that? And then I remembered, no, this happened. For whoever's idea it was, I sent the video or the link to the video to his manager, which I just found an email on his website or maybe his agent or something. And I was just like, hey, I'm this guy from Thunder Bay. I really like your music. I grew up listening to it. I'd love to love to meet you when you come to town and just say hi. And he emailed me back the next day and was like, do you want to play a song when I come to Thunder Bay? Do you want to come up on stage and do a song?
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
So that was how I met him. This would have been 2010, I think. And I know it's 2010 because I still have the poster. It's hanging on the wall. It's hanging on the wall.
He signed your poster.
Yeah, he signed the poster. Yeah. And so if I remember right, it was March 8th, 2010. And so when I met him at the show, he was like, by the way, if you like my stuff, you should be listening to Paco de Lucia. And I was like, I am. I found all 2 videos on YouTube. And he goes,
and I know that part.
Yeah,
right in. Yeah,
exactly. And he goes, cool. You should also listen to Vicente Amigo and Mojito and Diego del Mojao and all these names I'd never heard of before. And
so you had homework.
You're just taking notes. You're like, okay.
Yeah. And I remember around that time thinking, I really want to learn this properly, and I'm self-taught in regards to flamenco specifically. I've had guitar teachers, obviously, who've helped me a long way. But I really want to learn this stuff. And he goes, you should go to Spain and you should just go study and get a real flamenco guitar. And I remember later that summer, Sean Mundy, who at the time I don't think was my guitar teacher. He gave me lessons in my early 20s, but at the time I don't think I'd ever taken a lesson with him. But I remember him talking to my mom and saying get that kid to Spain, just here are some schools, get him over there. And so later that summer I went to Spain, bought that guitar, and that's all I've been doing ever since. Yeah.
And then
touring with Jesse Cook.
Well,
right?
That's
They
amazing.
kinda-
It's like a dream come true.
it totally is.
It's weird because if you'd asked me like, what's your childhood dream?
Yeah.
It was like, that would be it. That would be it. And so this would have been 5 or 6 years ago. I think I just put North Shore out, like my third album.
Yes.
And so I come home from this, 7 week, I almost said 7 month, 7 week.
Felt like 7 months.
It felt
but-
like 7 months.
Yeah.
I finished the production on that album and I released it and I was like, all right. The other thing I'd done was I'd applied to go to U of T, to go to U of T for like a master's in composition.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which I didn't end up doing.
No.
So I got in and I accepted it and everything. And I had done the thing you do where you send your CD out to all the radio stations and all your friends and everyone you know. And I sent one to Jesse. And he calls me up and he goes, hey, I like your album. I hear from social media or something that you're thinking of moving to Toronto, or like Tamar told me you're moving to Toronto or something, and I was like, yeah, that's right. And he goes, cool. Would you like a job? And
It just all started from, you're like, okay.
yeah. And so I was like, well, I'm planning to do a master's degree and all that, but like, I'd rather do this. So, so I called U of T and being like, yeah, that thing I said I was doing, I'm actually not doing it. And here's why.
Sorry, no.
And they were like, that's fine. We get it. So basically didn't immediately move to Toronto, but started like, it's hard to find an apartment at that time. So I started flying down and like crashing on friends' sofas and rehearsing with the band. And then, but within about 3 months, it was like, no, I live here now. And it was
So cool.
that's how it
So
happened.
cool. What do you tell someone who has a dream like this and it's happened? Do you have any advice? Because obviously we know how hard work things can be, but I mean, you obviously can't just think it's by chance.
Well, I mean,
Or do you?
Well,
it's, what do you think?
well,
Tell
it's-
us.
it's
It was probably just like because you're so talented.
Right? I mean, there has to be, right?
It's funny because I mean I've had people be like, I mean, you're, and I'm saying this as another person. They say things like, "You're clearly very talented," and I go, "It's funny because I am not a coordinated person at all. I'm terrible at sports. I'm terrible. Like, I'm good with like things that require like finger dexterity.
Yeah, like
and
if I'm sitting.
Yeah, and I developed the skill for learning music by ear because I so desperately wanted to do it.
Which is a huge skill.
Yeah, and granted, like I grew up in a house where there was always music. Everyone played instruments, and that sort of this sort of lifestyle was validated or was encouraged. Like, hey, you want to be a musician? Cool. Like
And you were immersed in it. Really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like and that sort of like the desire to do music professionally or for fun, like or socially or by yourself was always encouraged and celebrated. So
Yeah.
Right. So having the support of like your family and people around you that were just like, like this is awesome.
exactly.
Instead
So
of being like, well, why would you do that? You know,
Exactly.
Like just
Right. So maybe a little bit of that being told you can, or to try, or to just find a way to do it, even if it was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is a little inaccessible right now, but here's a way that I can access flamenco
Exactly.
at this point.
Exactly.
Right?
So you did. Oh, it was so helpful. So I've had people say like, oh, like either like, I mean, there's some talent involved, or there's some like clearly you've worked very hard. And I go, I mean, that may be true, but I'm trying to remember what they say. I think someone said this, but it was in regards to it's going to sound silly. It was in regards to like hockey.
Okay.
And like they're talking about like how, sometimes it's luck and sometimes it's the skill. And they go, well, you have to be good to be lucky and you have to be lucky to be good.
that is true.
When you were saying you were learning classical guitar and you were like, I want to do different stuff on it. So how, and obviously this is the one from Spain, how is the guitar different?
So it's, I should say historically, and by historically I mean like, I don't know, 100 years ago-ish,
Right.
give or take. They were the same thing. But there's sort of a difference in preference for certain kinds of sound between the two genres, right? As flamenco's developing and classical's developing, like classical guitarists want a concert instrument. I mean, I shouldn't generalize, but but typically like the idea was, hey, we want this to be a concert hall instrument. And so they'd start making it with the expensive woods. Like they'd make it with, I guess the one that everyone wanted was Brazilian rosewood, but you can't really get that anymore. So but some kind of rosewood, the ones that have like the dark back and sides,
Oh,
they look a bit more
okay.
like that guitar back and side, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
They those ones, like, they're a bit heavier, they're a bit thicker, they project really well, but for a flamenco sound, it can be a bit muddy. Like if you're accompanying a dancer, like, there's nails in the dancer shoes,
yes.
right?
Yeah,
Literally
like,
the heel is
there's some noise happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
you're not
needs to
going
cut.
It needs to cut through that.
Yeah. So it needs to have some punch to it. It needs to decay really fast. Like the sound, if you look,
Like come hit and then drop.
if you look at a flamenco guitar like waveform, if you look at what the recorded sound looks like, it looks like a percussion instrument. It's like there's a transient and then it's just nothing. It
that's very
decays
cool.
super fast.
So it's punchy, like it pops in and then and over the sound of the clickety clackities.
So you hear the rhythms.
You hear the rhythms.
Yeah. So and
That's so awesome. Now I'm going to be thinking of that when I listen to it, which I
for
never
sure.
did.
So
I
nowadays we have there's a bit more it's more personal preference. There's a wider variety of what you can get, but typically flamenco guitars are lighter. Like the wood's quite a bit thinner.
Okay.
Like the guitars are crazy light. Every time I pick up an electric guitar, I'm like, how do people do this? This is really heavy.
That's why you need one of those guitar straps with the padding.
Yeah. No, but the
That's if you're standing. Yeah.
the flamenco guitars are they're lighter, thinner. The bracing is a little bit different, and the wood tends to be. There's a couple other small differences, but it's really just like guitar builders do it this way, and it's
right with different models and things like there's sort of that preference, but that's generally. Okay.
But from the naked eye, can you tell the difference?
So,
like for a normal, like say a person that didn't know.
If you look at a guitar, and it looks like a classical guitar, but the back and sides are the same color as the front, it's probably a flamenco guitar.
Interesting.
The guitar I have is, the top is spruce, but the back and sides are cypress. So they're both it's a very light colored wood. So because of the varnish, it all looks yellow or kind of orange, right? So the flamenco guitars, they traditionally make with cypress still. You can also get ones made with rosewood that have that nice, more projecting sound, because there was a point where, they wanted to make flamenco guitar a concert hall instrument too. So let's have,
of course.
So let's have it project better and have better sustain. But it still, there's some character to the sound that's lost in that. So I've always preferred the cypress ones, but you can still get a really nice warm sound out of them, right? Depending how you play it.
Interesting. And how many guitars do you own?
Ooh, I have three.
Ooh, I got to think about this.
I have 3 flamenco guitars. I have 2 classicals, and I have 2 electrics and a bass.
Okay,
that's a good collection.
That's about expected when you ask a musician. You sort of collect.
I'm running out of room.
You need a guitar
You have your
room.
favorites, and you're like, not those ones.
Yeah.
So can you describe? I know this is going to be so tough to do. Can you sort of describe flamenco, like in your own words, even if it's just kind of what it means to you, or if it's just like, even if it what does it mean to you, or is it a feeling? Like if you had to say, or why do you like it, or is it? I know it's difficult to define. I feel
it is.
Right?
It really is. Well, and it's tricky too, because I. There was a stage where I wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to do, how much I wanted what I wrote to be flamenco music, whether I wanted to be influenced by it in the same way that someone like Jesse is, or like Flamenco Caravan is, right? Where it's like we're going to take this influence and a bunch of other things and put it into one. And but for me, it's almost like a lifestyle in a way that sometimes I slip in and out of, because it's it's a very social thing. Like as an art form, all of the sort of like the moments in it, the way it's structured is mostly solo, unless you're doing like a group choreography. But that's more of that's a more recent thing, I think. Like traditionally, it's a solo dance, or it's a solo. You play guitar solos, or you sing as a soloist. And if there's a sort of you want to make a piece that has a very rigid structure, you might have parts where like there's a chorus here, so we're gonna have backup singers, and we're gonna have lots of footwork and 3 guitarists. But
and everyone sort of takes turns on that.
Yeah, but exactly, everyone takes turns.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. So it's all like there's lots of people. It's social.
Yeah,
but everyone has their moment, right? It's always there's a focus on one person at any one time, but
That's cool.
Yeah, but you never linger on anyone
Yeah.
for too long, so it becomes a group thing, and I do love that. And I mean, and there are phases in like whatever I'm doing at a different time, if it's touring a lot or writing a lot, or where I sort of fall out of it, and I have to remind myself that that's, you start going to, flamenco hangs in Toronto, and you're like, oh right, this is what it's like. This is what it's supposed to be.
Which I think is probably just normal because it is part of your life. Like
exactly.
For sure. So flamenco is a rhythmical art form.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite rhythm that or makes it your favorite? Like why?
or right now, right? Does that change too?
It does. It does.
I feel like it does, right?
Sometimes like I have a favorite, and I'm like, oh, that's not my favorite right now, though. That's usually the one when people ask who's your favorite guitarist. I have a default answer, and then I'm like, that's actually not true. I've been listening to someone else a lot more lately.
But it's the answer if you need one.
You're like, that one is ready to go.
Okay, so right now,
this is the push the button.
Favorite rhythm right now.
Favorite rhythm right now. Yeah. The one I'm playing the most. Ooh, no, that's not right either. I'll give you the default answer.
Give us the default answer.
The default answer is Boulerius.
I feel like I knew that. Boulerius, yeah.
But
so good.
But there's a reason. They joke that if you take a flamenco record and you throw a dart at it, it's like you're going to hit a Boulerius somewhere because it's like it is the most popular. I think what was I reading? It makes up like, this might be an exaggeration, but close to 50% of flamenco recordings in general are this one form.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but it's I mean, flamenco has a huge number of forms, as you know, right?
Yes.
Is
there a fun rhythm you could kind of just teach us?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And the reason I ask is because I kind of want to illustrate the point that there are tons of rhythms. There's and actually I think they say there's something like, I don't know, like over 100, 150 different forms, but they all rely on a similar group of a similar family of rhythms. And sometimes what differentiates the form is like what key it's in, what the singer's singing about, what the exact structure is, like little things, right? So
it's this style that is like unstructured but structured, but rules but break the rules, which is kind of what's so amazing about it, I think, and captivating. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Here's a very, I guess we're sort of roundabout answering your question, right? Where it's like, here's this genre is very much like there's some very strict rules about how you but so that you can interact with people without words. You need to know what the calls are. You need to know what the musical signals are, what to watch for, what to listen for, so you can play along with someone that you've never actually accompanied before, like that, which is the hard part. You'll walk into a room and the dancer will be like, all right, we're doing this form that but we've never worked together, and you're like, all right, cool, I can do that. That's why there's the rules. Yeah. But you're also expected to break the rules at every turn.
This is so interesting, though. Which makes it really cool.
It's the fun part. Yeah, that's one of the reasons.
Like, oh, now that's changed. Oh no, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I think that's what keeps it kind of alive in a way that is different maybe from some other form. It's always kind of evolving in and of itself, just as it exists.
Yeah. So and so for me, I spend, I would argue, most of my time at home alone practicing, right? Because I want to be. To me, the most important thing is usually to be a good guitarist and to be a good composer is nowadays my sort of priority. But then you have to remind yourself, leave the house, go play with people. That's because that's at the end of the day, that's the goal for the time you spend working by yourself is to be good when you play with other people.
Yes.
So and that's where the mix of that.
And that's where the music is.
Exactly.
That's where you're. But I can see it's. You've got to do both.
Yeah. So the rhythm. So do you want to do?
What do you want to do? Can you do it?
Maybe.
I'm trying to think. So we could start with tangos. We could do.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll do something trickier. So
okay.
So tangos is.
Oh no.
So 4 beats.
Okay.
And you're gonna start. First beat is tap your foot.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Second beat, and actually 2 through 4 are just clap, but you're trying to emphasize. You're trying to emphasize 2 and 4, but mostly 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would sound like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Maybe I'll do it like this so it doesn't spike your microphones. 3, 4. And then the more you do it, you can get. Right? So they tend to be a little bit faster than this.
Yes.
But
this is the slow version.
This is the slow version. Yeah. If you really speed it up, it turns into rumba, which is like one.
Da, da, da.
Which is like like my job is my day job is doing rumors usually. So
you just
They're
make
so
it
fun.
sound so easy. And I have clapped on some, recordings over the years, and I'm like, why is this so hard? And I was a musician when younger or whatever. I don't know. It's just funny, but it's interesting. It's like, percussive.
Yeah,
Like
which I think
percussion almost.
which is kind of why I think I gravitated towards it with sort of my music background, and came to it and kind of went, oh, this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And because I played the piano, so there's this, I'm used to kind of my hands doing this, but maybe my foot doing this. And there's something very cool about being able to kind of be your own percussion.
It is percussion.
It absolutely
like,
is.
vibe, for sure.
The rhythm, yeah.
And the idea is that because this whole thing with the social art form is that if you're at a I was going to say what's it called? If you're at a juerga, like it's basically a flamenco kitchen party. That's the idea. If you're not singing, or even if you are singing but you're not playing guitar and you're not currently dancing, or you don't have something to do, because it's not your moment, you'll be doing palmas. You'll be doing the clapping, giving percussion, like giving the time to
be involved in part of the
whole
whole experience.
Everyone's always part of it. So
Which is really cool. It's like a community feel.
Yeah. And it's hard too. Like I remember when I first learned how to do palmas, and still, like I don't practice them all the time. Yeah. So I'll go to them and I'm like, oh, these are terrible. That's not the sound. Like you really have to work on it because it's
the worst is doing the carreras when you're just in an audience and all of a sudden you realize you're really clapping loud.
Oh yeah.
That's the worst part. You're like, ooh, gotta tone these down.
Yeah.
Because I'm clapping, like giving the flamenco clappers like ta, ta, ta.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the trickier rhythm?
The trickier rhythm is.
Should we try?
So
okay.
Let's do Bulerías, because Bulerías has has a weird count to it, but it has. You can think of it as being like it's an intuitive feel. I think if you don't think too hard about what the actual numbers are and think more about how it sounds, how it's supposed to sound, it can be a bit more accessible. So it's going to be the same thing. Foot on one. But I'm not actually going to.
No, because it's going to be 12.
I'm not actually going to count because it's actually in 12.
Because it's actually 12.
Yeah, it's actually in 12, but it's. But yeah, so there's going to be. Think of it as being 6 beats, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically, the off beats or the even numbered beats are accented, and there's nothing on 1. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
But much faster.
Oh yeah, much faster. So So at the actual tempo, it's. And you'll see people do this with their feet. They'll do this sort of back and forth. The reason there's sort of an intuitive feel to it that's hard to actually put a finger on is that it's sort of like someone has superimposed. If I say someone superimposed 3/4 and 6/8, where you have basically you're emphasizing.
Yeah, like you've got the sort of the metronome.
Yeah, your metronome is like 1,
Yeah.
2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm conducting wrong. 2. There we go. 1, 2, 3. It's been a
I was
while.
like, it's okay. Nobody can see. Oh wait, they're doing.
I think everyone can see this.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since conducting 2.
Yes.
2, 3. But if you have that going on as your sort of metronome with sort of like your lower pulse, there's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have those superimposed on each other. So you have this line like 3, 1, 2, 3, and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the same time. So you get the sort of. I don't know if the mic's picking it up, but
It kind of makes you want to dance, which makes sense because there's the dance accompaniment part of it. But do you think that people have a natural sense of rhythm, or do you think it's more of something that people can learn?
Oh, yeah.
And then how do you get better at it?
Yeah.
Oh,
so many questions. All the things.
No, really good question. And it's funny because I for obvious reasons in early 2020, I had to start doing other things. And one of them was teaching guitar online. So, and at the time I was like, to be honest, at the time I was like, I don't really want to be a teacher. It's not something I've ever really thought I was good at or really like thought I would enjoy. And I was never like, I don't want to be a teacher, but I sort of
Just
thought,
didn't gravitate towards it.
yeah, there's lots of things where I was like, I could be happy doing this. I could be happy doing this. I don't think I want to do that. But I never thought of myself as someone who would enjoy teaching. And then I was like, I have to do it out of necessity for a while. And it turns out I absolutely loved it. So I still teach.
Nice. Really?
Yeah, so I still I do online lessons like pretty regularly. And
That's great.
And basically, the question that gets asked really, really often is like, "Hey, I don't think I have. I want to do this, but I don't think I have a natural talent for it." And it's why I tell people like, because people will say, "Oh, clearly, you have an aptitude for it," and I'm like, "No."
Then they'll be like, "Good thing the counter doesn't check how many hours I've put into this and played." Right? Like, there's a lot of time.
And I'm sure there's. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there were limits to it, or if there was some degree of having an aptitude that does help. Like, I know when I was a teenager, I didn't think that I'd ever be able to learn something by ear, but I have a good auditory memory. Like, if there's a catchy melody that I've heard like 2 weeks ago, I can pick up a guitar and in a little bit work it out because I can remember how it sounds.
Right.
But I had no aptitude for I don't think anyway for like coordinating movements or anything. I I was never good at sports.
I don't know. You were pretty coordinated when you were showing us that rhythm.
Yeah, but I worked on that for 15, 20 years. It's exactly. So that's what I tell people is there are certain things that will help. I think you have to know what your aptitude is and lean into it and then work at the things that you're not good at. I'm totally of the opinion that like you can learn maybe it's easier when you're younger, but now if I were starting from scratch, it'd be like, it would probably be harder now than when I was 15.
For sure.
Right. When you're younger, you do definitely retain the information a lot quicker and faster.
I agree.
And just
but in terms of someone being are you born with it or not? I don't think that's true. I think, and sometimes there is an attitude of like, hey, you've come to this too late. Like you're not, like you didn't grow up with this. You weren't holding a guitar at age 2, therefore you can't really internalize it. And I think, I sort of think of it as more like learning a language, because flamenco is a language. I mean, music is a language in general. So you get, you become, if you're more immersed in it, you become more familiar with it earlier on. It becomes completely natural to you, of course, but at the same time, you can learn a language later in life. You can become fluent in it.
And immerse yourself later in life. I think that's the key. Like what I found when I came to flamenco, I had a little bit of an easier time sort of with the rhythm, and then I'm like, but then that's because I had some experience with music. Yeah. And I listened to music, and it's same sort of thing. I can play and hear a song, or I can just sort of hear the rhythms of the song. So there's an advantage there, but because I was immersed in it, but it doesn't mean that someone else can just listen to the song over again or hear the rhythms of things. So yes, I think I agree with you on that. But it's definitely never too late. I would almost
like when you have a passion, or if you're like, I'm really interested in this, you probably would push yourself to like learn it, Yeah. Whereas if you're like if a kid's like, you have to do this homework, and you're like, I don't want to do this. I have no interest. Yeah. But if the interest is there, then you probably could teach yourself just by, because as you get better, you'd be excited. You'd be like, oh my God, I did the thing. Yeah.
I kind of feel like rhythm is always there, though. I think we kind of probably all grow up with it, all grow up with that natural level of it. It's just a matter of, are we listening to it and realizing it's there? From a young age, depending on, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think you're right. Like, and there's certainly a skill to it. I mean, I'm sure we've all been to concerts where like people are clapping on the wrong beats, or they're or they're not clapping in time because people assume. It's funny. People assume that they if they have a sense of rhythm, they would assume that they can therefore clap in time. Right. And I mean, it is not entirely true. No. Like,
and sometimes you have to wait for it a bit too. Like sometimes you're listening. Sometimes it takes but it takes you a second too. You're like, oh, hang on. Yeah. Where's the beat? And then you find it. So you don't always get it. It's not like you just start, but you have to listen a little bit.
But it's also a skill too. Like it's sort of like having perfect pitch. I mean, it depends on your definition of perfect pitch. But like I know people who have perfect pitch, but they don't. But that just because they can identify a pitch doesn't mean that they can reproduce it perfectly. Right. And in the same way, you might be able, you might have a really, really good sense of rhythm, but that doesn't mean that you have the physical coordination developed to clap. Like I know people who have a really good sense of rhythm but can't actually clap in time.
Right.
But because that's the physical, like, okay, I know how the rhythm goes. Let's make it happen.
Yes.
I can know how scales work and not be able to, just
Right, so
run one off if I don't know
Right. So
it.
I think it's about, like you said, maybe, and that's what teaching has sort of
Yeah.
is how do I connect,
Yeah.
the bits that you can do and already have with with
The
hands
execution
and
of
the execution
the
of
Yeah,
it.
that's
So-
the word. Is the
that's
execution.
it.
And it's developing. It is developing a skill. So
Yeah.
whatever it is you're good at, be aware of it, and then
Yeah.
work on the other
Work
stuff.
where you need help. So
Yeah.
speaking of all this skill, and you obviously have so much skill with flamenco guitar, if you could right now, like we're snapping our fingers, and you could be like, I'm going to have the same amount of skill to sing flamenco or dance flamenco, which one would you choose?
Oh. Here's probably, and there's a very specific reason
Okay.
for it. Probably dance.
Okay.
And the reason is it's not that I've never been a comfortable singer, which is funny because I have to sing sometimes.
Okay.
Like when
Like harmony, like backup, or do you do?
So when I do the show with Jesse, there's a song we do for the encore that it's an old Crowded House song from I don't even know when. It sounds like it's from the 80s for all I know, but I don't think it's. But it's like Fall at Your
wasn't
Feet.
around
It's-
in the 80s, just
It's
kidding.
called I wasn't.
Yeah.
It's
I was.
I have a 90s kid.
Darn it. Okay.
That's okay.
Well, that's okay.
It's okay.
No, but it's called Fall at Your Feet. And it was an old Crowded House
Oh,
song.
yes, okay.
And he did a cover of it in, I think, the early 2000s. And he's always done it as the encore for his shows. And when I joined the band, the whole band turned over, and he was like, I still want to do this song. Can you sing? And I was like, no. He goes, would you learn to sing? And the truth was I could. I just don't really enjoy it. It makes me nervous, which is not a reason not to do something. But I was like, I'm not going to be comfortable on stage singing. If you want a comfortable singer, I'm not your guy.
Yeah, and you're going to stress me out the whole show,
Yeah.
knowing I have to do that at the encore.
And he was like, if I asked
do you
really
mean?
nicely.
You're like, but I can
Yeah.
do.
But I
I
can't.
can play the guitar
Yeah.
like nobody.
Yeah, but he was like,
He worked on you, though.
He did. He was like, I'm also not a good singer. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I want to try. And I was like, okay, that's
Okay.
if we make this
It's an experiment. Right?
It was always an experiment,
Yeah.
but it was an experiment that still feels like an experiment. But we've done it like I don't know hundreds of times. Where at the end of the show, you go out, you do your best,
thing. Yep.
turn your brain off for 5
Yep.
minutes, and then. So when I think about it, I'm actually quite proud of it because I learned to sing in a way that I was relatively comfortable with. But for some reason, it's just always been a thing that, the best way of putting it is has always been I've always been very self-conscious about it. And it's not that I hear myself and I go, I sound bad. It's that, I'm just very self-conscious about that. Guitar has always been my thing. Having an instrument in front of you that's the extension of yourself is the thing that I've gotten used to.
Does it feel, because I feel like that's how it feels for me, it feels really personal.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel there are some things I can do. People go, how can you do that? I don't know. These things, I have no problem.
Yeah.
Singing to me feels really personal and a little bit vulnerable, and that's where I get uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So maybe that's
Yeah.
how you're feeling?
So the reason, exactly.
Maybe.
No, I got just,
Yeah.
No, and I took a flamenco singing class once because it was.
We did a workshop, remember once?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
that was
Yeah.
so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going,
You did, I was so
it's not just
uncomfortable.
me. It's not just
Oh,
me.
I was
was
so
it uncomfortable, or was
Yeah.
it like super fun? Right?
Well, you look at it in hindsight. That's the thing. When I look at it in hindsight, I'm like, those performances were fun. But at the time, I was terrified. And
I was glad we were just in a living room.
Yeah.
For that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
that's
glad
right.
you're-
That's
right?
right. It was at my mom's
It
house.
was at your mom's house, yeah.
And Tamar did the workshop. Yeah. But for dance, the reason I would pick dance is that it's not that I'm an uncomfortable dancer, it's I'm a bad dancer. I can't dance to save my life. But I think if I could, I'd be happy. I'd be
Okay.
like whereas singing, it's like I'm never comfortable singing. Dancing is just I'm bad at it. And I'd be happy to be good at it.
Okay.
Are you looking for the ultimate guide to live entertainment in Thunder Bay?
Whether it's concerts and festivals, stand-up comedy, theater, or drag shows, tvshows.com has it all.
They got it all. TBShows.com is your one-stop hub for everything happening in Thunder Bay. Vibrant music and event scene. Stay in the know, up-to-date event listings, ticket info, local highlights.
It's easy to use, totally free,
I like free.
and keeps you connected to the hottest events in the city. That's hot.
But actually, don't miss out. Visit tvshows.com today because on Thunder Bay, the show always goes on.
There's sort of a split sometimes in the community that I see, and I'm sort of like, again, I do my own thing with it. Whenever I play, a quote unquote traditional flamenco show, if I'm accompanying dancers, I want to be as faithful and authentic as I possibly can.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't grow up with it. I'm some Canadian guy playing Spanish music.
Right. So you have to come to it
very carefully.
Very carefully and know and
and respectfully and try to be authentic as possible. But also there's the argument to be made for like, okay, if I'm being hired to do this, what's the point in me doing it if I'm not going to give it a touch of like whatever it is that I can do that someone else not can't, but the thing that makes it sound like something I would do. Like making certain musical choices that are what I would do as opposed to what someone else would do. Someone else you could hire in Toronto,
right?
Like they have their sound and I have mine. And but the thing I will say is that what I think you were alluding to is there is a sort of there's a split in the community in Spain about like preserving it as it is and letting it evolve. Because for the longest time, it was evolving very, very quickly. Like there was like new forms being added, new things being made up. And because maybe it was because there was more regional isolation, there's like mountain range everywhere.
Right.
And Andalusia is like this very sort of like secluded, not secluded, but like it's in the middle of a bunch of stuff. It's right between Morocco and, the rest and the rest of Spain and Europe. Yeah. There's, it's geographically in the middle of stuff, but it's also isolated by mountain ranges and water, right? So, historically, it's the different parts of it are like they have very well-defined regional varieties of the different forms. So you'll say we're going to do, when I said there's 150 forms, a bunch of them are just bulerías from Cádiz or bulerías from Jerez and bulerías from Granada, and then they're all the regional dialects,
yes.
Right? So for the longest time, they're developing very rapidly. But then there was a point where it started to feel like okay, this is what flamenco is now, and we're not going to change it. And fortunately, I think, I think most of the new generation is no, it's very. You could argue it's very noble to preserve the history and to preserve and very important to preserve the history and where the art came from and how it developed. But you also have to let it keep evolving. Have the record of where it was and how it got to where it is and why it is the way it is. It's crucial.
I just love it.
So after this big show,
yeah,
with the symphony and the recording and everything, what is next on the docket, or so to speak, of what's your plan for after January?
After January,
because then now people will be listening. They might be like, "Oh, we gotta look this guy up. What's he doing?"
Yeah.
So what's your plan?
So when this airs, I imagine I'll be on tour with Jesse.
Okay.
We're going to be in the States for a while. So basically, the live recording is happening on I want to say January 18th. Saturday,
sounds right.
Saturday, January 18th.
Okay.
I fly back to Toronto mid-afternoon on January 19th and go on tour on the 20th. So it's very quick turnaround.
Very quick turnaround.
So yeah, that's the thing that happens right after. And when we get back, the thing I'm most excited about after this recording is that Jesse's doing a show at Massey Hall. So I get to play in Massey Hall.
Oh, come on. So good.
Which I've been looking forward to for ages because we live in Toronto and we've done a show in Toronto, but the last time it was booked, Massey was under renovations. So we played, in my head it's the Sony Centre, but it's now Meridian Hall. And I think most people who live in Toronto, it's the O'Keefe Centre.
Okay.
but it's
changed so many times.
Yeah, it's changed so many times. So we've played in Toronto, but never played at Massey. So
when's the Massey show? Roughly?
I think it's late February.
Okay.
Yeah, end of February. So there's that, and then after that, for me, there's a couple months to do the post-production on the album, which is exciting for me this time because I've always done most of the editing myself, and this is the first time I'm having other people do it. So on the one hand, it's I'm not used to relinquishing that kind of control over my guitar sound. I'm very kind of finicky over it, but I also spend too much time on it. So it's nice to have the idea of let's let someone else worry about it this time.
Yeah, and then you can, and that's the thing. You'll still be part of the process.
Exactly.
It'll just be nice that you can come back and kind of like, oh, I like that actually, or more of that, and just not have to be so
engrossed in it all the time.
Yes, which I know. I do that with writing too and editing. It's like.
Yeah. Do people say the thing where like when is it done? And it's
and you're like, when's it due?
Yeah, when they pry it out of my hands.
When they pry it out of my hand, or they're like, when's it due? And I'm like, how much time do I have? Like, I'll just keep.
You'll keep working away on it.
Yeah.
Like it's tough to let it go, and then you can't, and you almost have to do it though when in that time frame because years pass, and then you're like, well, I'm different now.
Yeah.
This looks different to me. I'm gonna make different choices, right?
Yeah.
So look back at your old stuff or like old photos that I've taken, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting choice of editing. But I mean, my style, like I had said before, is very similar to how it was before.
As long as you feel like you're getting better. That's the main thing.
I think so. And that, I mean, but what is better though? Because you could just be like your style's evolving or changing or whatever.
Yeah.
As long as you see something that you're like, that's great. And here I am now. Like you said, that learning.
Yeah.
Always.
But so for me.
Okay, so you'll be doing the album and hope to have that out.
Yeah, in my head it's sometime in the spring, but that's fairly wide kind of thing.
Right.
The thing that's quote unquote next for me that I'm trying to think about is what to do.
What to do next?
Well, not so much what to do next, but how to do what to do next is the point of the album. When the TBSO approached me a few years ago and said like, would you be interested in like, or again, it wasn't so much like, hey, we want to do this recording. It was like, you should do this recording. Like you should like.
They were like giving you
like, come on, like
nudge.
Go for it. Like make this happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, if that's a thing that you want to do, that you think I could make happen, like yeah, of course. And so, the motivation behind it isn't just to have this recording because it would be fun, even though that's true. It's that I really want to do more of this orchestral guitar thing. Like, again, basically the format, like it's not concerto format, but it's like orchestra playing the song with me doing the solo part. So most of my arrangements have, like the original versions, the original guitar versions are lead guitar, some percussion, and like some other like guitar tracks. Like the only instrument I really play other than percussion sampling and stuff is the guitar on my albums. If I need a piano or a flute or whatever, I hire other people.
Yeah.
But there is an awful lot of like, I'll record the guitar part, and then I'll record a rhythm guitar part, and then I'll go, oh, this would be nice to have like a little line in here, like a little counter melody, and I'll record that. And then I'll be like, it'd be nice to have this. And then by the end of it, there's like, 10 guitar parts, like 10 guitar tracks. And I'm like, I'm never going to be able to play this live. Why did I do this?
I need to clone myself if I'm going to do this.
And you're like, there are only like in Toronto, there aren't enough professional guitarists to hire to play all these parts in one show. But anyway, no, it's, I'm exaggerating.
That's what's interesting about listening to a recording versus live. There always is like that difference usually, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah.
But I love that that's not stopping you.
Well, so
like, I love that you just
I'm going to do the 20 parts.
Okay, I'm hearing all this. And I'm just going to lay down 10 tracks, and I'll figure out later how I could actually make this happen live.
Well, and that was the funny thing is like, because I tried not to think too hard about the live, and then like you feel like you're shooting yourself in the foot when you'd go, okay, now I actually have to figure out how to do this. Why did I?
Yeah.
For me, it's less like, why did past me write this? It was more like, why did past me do it this way? Because now my life is hard. No, it's.
But then you figured it out, and then you're proud.
I think we've all been there.
Exactly. Yeah. So
how can I make this work for me instead of?
Yeah. And the way to make it work turns out was, and I think what may have sort of spurred it was, I remember my mom at one point was listening to my albums and said, and I'm almost quoting, like the word choice is important, was, your music sounds very orchestral, and I was like, huh. I wonder if I could get an orchestra to play it.
It's amazing.
She sparked the idea in your mind, and then
we
you're
love
like,
Mom.
the ball went rolling, and you're like,
and that was a compliment,
Mom.
not your music sounds very interesting.
No, it was like
I hear all the
I'm
parts.
like, please don't say interesting. Orchestral. I
But
love
if she
that.
was a musician too, she would have heard all those different parts that could be or were there with different instruments. She's like, you know what? An orchestra would be a really sweet choice.
So how do you give up? I know we're going to be here forever, but I love this. How do you decide How do you decide who to give those parts to?
Oh, that's the hard part. I'm one of those people who, like, if I'm in the grocery aisle and there's like a wall of the same thing, I'm just like, I'll come back later. It's like I get choice paralysis about like certain things like that.
I just want one choice.
Yeah.
It's too many options.
So I started adopting the thing of making a decision that I tell myself is not permanent. You just make a decision.
Been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. This doesn't have to be forever.
Is it for like word choice? For like what words
Same
you're gonna
kind of
put
thing,
down?
or sometimes you pick a name or something. Just be like, just so you can keep going, because
Yeah.
otherwise it will stop the process if you get hung up on it. So yeah, you have to try to tell yourself, okay, just do this.
Yeah.
Just to keep filling in the pieces.
Well,
Definitely.
And what I find, like when I first started doing orchestral arrangements, I found it really, really, really hard to pick, because at first, I mean, I didn't know the strengths and weaknesses of a lot of the instruments, and then I went to university, and like at first I was taking classical guitar lessons, and then at some point, I think 2 years in, I was like, you know what I really want to do is flamenco, and it's really hard to do both at the same time. Like, I want to be practicing as much flamenco as I can, and the techniques are just different enough. Like, the basic mechanics of how you pluck the string is just different enough that I feel like I can't do both. I can't do one really well while I'm also working on the other.
Right.
So I remember at the time, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do classical guitar anymore. And Ari, the composition prof at Lakehead, who at the time I think might have been chair. I'm trying to remember. No, but at the time, in any case, he was my theory professor at the time, and I remember telling him this, and he goes, you know, you can switch your major to composition, right? And I was like, I didn't even know we offered that here. Like, I knew there was a composition course, but I didn't know you could
there was a composition course.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could major.
Yeah, you can major in composition. And so I switched my major, and
Did that make your life easier?
oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, because
It
instantly
would have been more difficult for me, but yeah,
well,
I guess it allowed you to separate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It meant that and at the time I didn't know what I was doing, writing anything. I never really, I tried to write, but I was like, I had no confidence. I had no, didn't even know where to start. It was like, here's a blank canvas, and anything you could ever want, you just have to imagine it. But you're like, where do you start? I have no idea. The only thing I'd ever done was I'd opened, I was familiar with how to use Finale, you know, and how to use scoring software, but it was only ever for transcriptions. It was never to write something from scratch.
Yeah,
right?
Which is totally different, because the notes are already there.
Yeah, exactly. If the notes are already there, I know where to put them.
That's,
yeah. So the thing that I took away most from that time there was I wasn't writing flamenco pieces. Right? I wasn't learning how to do that, but I was learning how to write for different instruments, and how to and what their strengths and weaknesses are, how they sound together, and you'd get these assignments where it's like, hey, there's a new music ensemble, and there's this weird collection of these 5 people are in an ensemble together, and you're like, that's not a traditional pairing of instruments
Right?
all.
There's a reason why the trios are always, a violin and a cello in it, right?
Yeah,
They sound good.
Yeah, it's like here's here's a cellist and a saxophone player and a keyboardist, and someone plays vibraphone too. That's in there too. And you're like, okay, how do I?
That one guy stands there for most of it, and then just does one, right?
That would be. I would be like, I want to be that guy.
Yeah,
triangle. Yeah.
So but that's what I took away from it, was how to
problem solving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle. That's the thing. I think the way I approach it now when I'm orchestrating, or just even writing my own stuff, is you put something in place. It's sort of like working on a Sudoku, right? Where you'll put placeholders and be like, it could be this, it could be this. I'm just going to put a number here. Maybe I'm doing Sudokus wrong. I don't know. But you're like...
I can't even do Sudoku.
I love Sudoku.
Yeah.
It's really addictive.
Yeah, it totally is.
Maybe you can show me how to do it after, because I don't know how to do Sudoku.
It's fun.
Oh, good.
It's fun.
But you have to make strategic guesses and put things into places, and just be like, that's just living there for now. That's just good. I think it'll be good. And then what you find is that as you start filling it out, the score, as you start filling it out, it starts narrowing down your choices, because you'll be like, okay, now I've got this here, and that instrument actually, in that register, that's going to get buried. So either I bump it up the octave, or I double it, or I'm doubling it with that.
And then you have to decide what you love. If there's something in there you love, you're like, no, we have to keep that, and I got to work around it.
Yeah. So if you treat it like a puzzle, and you're gradually putting it together piece by piece, and some pieces are sort of near where they need to be, but not quite locked in yet, then the more you just let that happen, before you know it, you're like, oh, it's done. cool. Just move that and cool, off it goes. Like,
Yeah.
That's great. But the guitar was kind of the lead-in for that then, right? Because
for
you
sure.
started and you're like, I have this part. And then I
So
can add the other thing.
interesting.
I know, it's fascinating.
Yes.
I could
So
never do
I'm going to
that.
move on a bit
yeah.
because we still have a few questions.
sure.
I had so many
and
questions.
they're not really music related.
No.
There's a little bit. So you grew up here.
yep.
You moved to Toronto.
Yeah.
That's
Now
right.
you're back in Thunder Bay for a little bit.
Yep.
Do you have any places you are wanting to go to or things you want to do like Thunder Bay?
While you're here?
You know, Thunder Bay-esque things that you are on your list of to-dos?
Yeah. So, I mean, I try to come back every once in a while. This is the longest I'll be in town for. This
stretch?
will have been
Okay.
the longest I've been in town in about the last 5 years. I usually come and hang out for 2 weeks or so, but I'm in town now until
January 19th.
yeah, until the
whatever.
project's done. It's
Wow.
about 5 weeks from now, or 5 weeks ago. Now that when
Yes,
this airs.
right.
Yeah, so I'm trying not to rush everything. I'm trying not to get it all out of the way because I want to pace it a bit. But I when I lived here, I used to go for walks to the marina every day. I used to like walk from my house.
Yep.
You know,
Downhill.
down Bay Street,
Yeah.
go all the way down to the marina, do the little that little circle there, and yeah. So basically,
They're like, okay.
Thanks for the stopwatch.
yeah.
This is like the music we're playing off of the awards. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
but-
why I was like,
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
getting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I like going around and seeing the city. That's
Yeah.
but they're also
Things
like
change
shops.
too, right?
Yeah,
But-
it's quite a bit different
Yeah.
than what I remember. Like I used to like going to I used to pop into Calico every day. I'd get a coffee
Yeah.
and wander around downtown, or like I'd go to the Foundry and see who's playing. Or and I think like Goods & Co. sprang up after I left.
Yes.
And every time I come back, I want to wander through it and see
Oh,
what's
yeah.
new there.
It's a cool little.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sitch.
It's fine. And Red River's open again now, so it'll be
Yep.
good.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, good. Because I haven't been down yet. So.
Yeah. Nope. You can go down there. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Last
This is
official question.
This is a
Is
fun
it true that
question.
you're a Star Wars fan?
Oh, yeah. So
Okay.
how did this come up? I'm curious. Yeah.
Oh, we follow each other on
Oh, that's true.
Instagram, so I
Oh,
kind of
that's
know,
right. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have
Yes.
a favorite character?
If you could only pick one.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay.
Easily. Yeah.
So, and then also our little side thing. This was my
This was
idea.
her idea.
I was
Yeah.
like, could you do an impression of a character from Star Wars or a sound effect from the movie? You know, because like maybe a lightsaber or a little. There's lots of sound effects in there.
I feel like
Just
I can
saying.
only do lightsaber.
Or Chewie. I mean, I've tried.
Have you tried?
I've tried. It's
I do-
not good.
Could
I-
you do a good one?
I do an okay Palpatine impression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give it to us.
Do we have to do one then?
No. Let's
I'm
not have
trying
it.
to
Unless you can muster up a Chewbacca.
I don't want. No,
I can't. I tried the saber, and even that
I tried Chewie when I was like driving the other day because I came up with this question in my mind, and I was like, no, can't do
Yeah.
the Chewbacca.
I do actually the one I only
Okay.
do one really good impression, and
Okay.
it's not Star Wars. It's
That's
Doctor.
okay.
It's Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Oh, I
well,
love
that's
it.
also
Okay, let's get the
impressive.
Dr. Claw. I want
Yeah.
to hear Dr. Would you do it?
I'll get you next time, Gadget.
Yep, that's
Oh my gosh, I loved
Yeah.
Inspector Gadget. Would always be like the go-go gadget arm.
Yeah.
But it was the claw
Yeah.
voice
But the
was
claw.
creepy.
With the
That was
with
good.
the cat or the
With the cat. Anyway.
Okay.
That was good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a question from Blueprints. So we're in
Oh,
Blueprints
okay.
right now.
Yep.
Every time on the podcast, they come up with a question
Oh, cool.
for you, and then it's in there. So the question is, if you could custom build your dream guitar, what features would it have?
So it's funny. I used to want a guitar with a cutaway in it because they always looked really
Fancy.
cool. Well,
Yeah.
and flamenco guitars traditionally don't have cutaways. You can custom order them with them, but the only
Just get a little saw. Just kidding.
yeah, I
Don't
mean,
do that to the guitar.
Never.
No, it's funny. Every time I or someone I know has tried to modify a guitar
Doesn't work
themselves,
out?
it just falls apart.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's
like don't touch. Don't
touch
if it's
it.
together, leave it.
yeah, it's like your computer. It's like, does
Right?
it work? Don't update
Exactly.
it. Yeah, no. When I first got that guitar, I was like, I want one that has a cutaway, but they don't have any. Now, for me, I'm trying to think. Like in terms of, it's less about. How do I put this? It's less about the physical
Okay.
characteristic and more about like how it sounds. So I tend to like a guitar that has pretty low action on it, like the strings are really close to the fretboard, and partially because they're easy to play.
Right?
But
You
the
don't
thing,
think
Well,
You're not like sitting there like holding your hand like a turkey claw.
Yeah,
pushing
no, but traditionally flamenco guitars
How
have
is it
really low
typically?
action anyway.
Oh, they do?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
nice.
lower than that. Is the other difference is that
Okay.
they tend to be built so that the action is lower than they are on classical guitar.
Nice, so you can play super fast.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah,
sure.
Right?
But it's not doable otherwise.
But the reason for it for me is not because it's not as much because it's easy to play fast. It's because you get a little bit more the frets buzz a little bit, and I mean, which isn't a nice way of putting it. Sometimes people will they'll listen to it and they'll be like, oh, that sound is it's not clean. It's not.
But do you like the buzz?
It's part of the flamenco sound. Is that I guess the classical tone is pure. Like you want this sort of very like refined, perfect tone with
Clean, like you can hear 'em,
yeah. Whereas flamenco, like you want it to sound a little bit rough around the edges. And
It's a charm.
yeah, the analogy
Yeah.
that we use is like you want to be able to dig in just enough that you get some of that. Like it's sort of like tube distortion. Or like
Okay.
if someone has like a raspy voice when they sing, if they dig a little bit into it, there's a little bit of a break to it.
So you are kind of like you want to get into the fretboard a bit, right?
What was there's a Brian Eno quote that I read in like David Byrne has a cool book. And
he's fun.
He's really fun. So like quirky, right? But
Yeah.
like he had a Brian Eno quote where he's talking about production, where he was saying like, it was in the context of like CDs, like people saying like, oh,
Right.
CDs are too clean. But give it a few years, and we'll all be wishing for digital distortion on everything, because people have that nostalgia for vinyl and for like any
it's
kind
distortion. It's the warmth. It's the warmth of it, right?
and what it's telling you, and this was the crucial point to it, is that it's telling you that the medium that is containing the sound that you're creating is like the sound is so powerful. There's so much to it that the medium is almost unable to contain it. And that's what that kind of distortion is telling you. So that's why I love that sound on a flamenco guitar.
love that.
You're
just always trying to figure out how much you can push. Like you're just on that edge of like.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
that's fun.
So yeah,
I love that.
Okay.
So if you could just get that ultimate.
That would be the perfect guitar. That one's pretty close, but it's not like
If you could you just wanted that little bit more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So every time we do the podcast, we do a little speed round. Quick little
try to
questions.
make it speedy.
We try to make it speedy.
Yeah.
We'll make it speedy.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna ask you quick little questions, and you. Yep. So, what's your best travel tip?
Oh. Sleep when you can. Take every
Fair
chance
enough.
to sleep. Don't drink too much coffee.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Do you have any pre-show rituals?
I make origami turtles and hide them in all the venues.
Oh my God!
So I
that's
knew you did a
fun.
little bit of origami, but you hide them in.
Every venue we play in, I make an origami turtle before the show and I hide it somewhere backstage.
Oh, that's sneaky.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that.
Like, how big are we talking here?
like this big.
Oh, okay. Like a
I
palm
love that.
size.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
fun. Good one.
Your favorite time of day?
Oh, like 2 in the morning. 1 in the morning.
Night owl. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you love or hate Valentine's Day?
Oh, it depends how lonely I am.
I was going to say depends. Depends. Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's generally speaking, like I don't hate it, but I'm sort of like indifferent towards it. You could say, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think
Yeah.
love doesn't need a day. It's like the
Yeah.
whole year.
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
love somebody.
Or,
and-
I don't like being told what to do. It's my thing,
Today's
right?
not the day.
I
to
mean,
be
I
It's
out.
not the
always wear
day. Let's
pink
make it
anyway.
February 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
finally.
so Lake Superior or Lake Ontario?
Lake Superior.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Right?
big lake.
Yeah. When I moved to Toronto, I remember. Tamar, my friend Tamar,
Yes.
the flamenco singer. People listening might not know who she is, but she's a flamenco singer and dancer in Toronto. When I moved to Toronto, she was like, "Hey, I want to show you something." And we like go down to the waterfront, and she's like, "Look at this. Look how majestic this is. You can't see the other side." And I'm like, "Tamar, that's cute. It's cute that
But
you think
wait
this
a
is
minute.
impressive."
Oh my gosh, I
I know
love
Lake
it.
Superior is actually like such a cool.
Yeah.
Like it's like one of the biggest lakes in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
The
And we
greatest
live
lake.
right
It's
by
the
it.
greatest lake.
I think it's.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they call it.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us, Matt. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
answering all of our questions. We threw a lot at you.
I love
it's
it.
just been, we could talk to you all day
Yeah.
and the next day.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
it's so nice to be back. Like I tell people like, or when people ask, hey, like, what are you doing for the holidays, or what are you doing for whenever? Like if I'm in Thunder Bay, and they say, like, when are you going home? I think of it as like, I'm going home to Toronto. But when I'm in Toronto, if people say, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going home to Thunder Bay. And like, it feels like I have two homes. It's always exciting to go back to the other. And So every time I come here, it is coming home.
Nice.
Well, thank you for coming home and sitting down with us. And we're excited for your show and everything else that you're doing.
Thank you so much. And then now you'll be doing a performance in
wait,
Blueprints.
so does that mean we have to look for a turtle?
Oh, I didn't bring one here.
Oh my God.
Maybe it's a secret. Maybe it's a secret.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's not technically.
Oh, that's okay. Well,
Shannon will be here at 2 a.m.
You'll see me like sneak into the building in a couple days.
Know.
Just like
he didn't bring the paper. There's no.
Okay, we're good.
I know it's here.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks to Matt Sellick. And that's it for Season 1 of Better in Stereo. Follow us on social media to stay up to date on Season 2.
Better in Stereo is recorded live in studio at Blueprints.
Audio engineering by Mac Davis.
Video filmed by Aaron Collins, edited by Jean-Paul DeRover.
Mixed by Jean-Paul DeRover.
Watch of Mars, written and performed by Matt Sellick.
Watch the live in-studio performance on YouTube or at blueprintsaudio.com/betterinstereo.
Follow us on Instagram at Better in Stereo Podcast.
You can listen to Better in Stereo wherever you get your podcasts.